George Miller was single and lived in a town far from his family. Feeling lonely, he decided to adopt a dog. The 29-year-old cannot be separated from his puppy. In his eyes, dogs really are a man's best friend. If anyone asks Miller to know what their dog's like, he'll instantly refer to them as loyal and one of the cutest animals you'll ever see. But Miller didn't know about his pooch. What happened made Miller question everything. He didn't understand how a dog could have done such a thing. What he was doing made Miller wonder if it was the same dog he'd adopted. Crosby was a really cute dog. He loved playing with other animals when Miller took him to the park. Crosby often refused to leave after loving an animal. Miller initially didn't notice the change in Crosby's behavior. They do the same things every day, but Miller didn't see any warning signs his dog was giving him. Miller finally noticed it when he got home after a long day of work and was looking forward to his furry friend greeting him affectionately. But what he saw instead was something he never wanted to experience again. Crosby wasn't answering Miller's calls. Soon he was staring at the living room wall. Why didn't Crosby answer? Did his hearing go? Miller shouted with even greater force so that his voice echoed across the room. Still nothing. He crouched down next to his buddy and stared at the spot on the wall that fascinated him. What was going on? Miller was very concerned. He was lovingly petting his dog in desperation, and Crosby suddenly snapped out of it. Miller looked straight at his dog and said, "What is it, boy?" When he met his dog's eyes, he patted him again and breathed a sigh of relief. Whatever the matter was with him, he was fine now. Maybe it was just, a mistake or some sort. But Miller wasn't aware of it. It was something much bigger. Crosby acted normally all night after that. But when Miller woke up dry at midnight, he decided to get a glass of water from the kitchen. As he passed the living room, he noticed that Crosby was doing it again. But now something was different. There seemed to be a gray cloud hanging over him. He looked so sad as he intently looked at the same spot on the wall as before. Miller had to find out what was wrong with Crosby. He decided to get up extra early and go straight to the nearest store. When he got there, he found a night vision installed camera. He drove home and installed it at home before going to work. What Miller found on the footage was that Crosby wouldn't stare at the wall when he was gone. He just ran to the wall and looked at it when Miller walked into the room. Was he trying to communicate? Miller craned his neck into the living room to see the spot on the wall. As Miller walked into the room and crouched down to take a closer look at it, he heard Crosby bark playfully and run into the room. Miller broke off a piece of the wood paneling that had come right off next to the floor and was surprised to see a hole in the drywall. He took a deep breath and stuck his hand in until it was elbow deep. But as he carefully felt around, his eyes widened in disbelief. A little kitten was hiding in the loose paneling of the wall between his living room and the washroom. The strange thing, however, was the kitten was very much like Crosby's best feline friend. Stranger still, Miller had no idea how the little kitten got into there, but he suspected it had something to do with Crosby. Miller carefully cleaned up the kitten and carefully wiped the dust off its fur with a damp cloth. He looked down at Crosby, who was wagging his tail wildly and looking very pleased with himself. The kitten couldn't have been more than 8 weeks old, and Miller had no idea how to properly look after her. He just hoped she had owners who were looking for her. Miller posted a photo on his neighborhood Facebook group, but nobody came forward to claim it. Miller knew there was a tough decision to be made soon. In the meantime, Crosby loved having her with him. He was becoming more and more like the joyful, goofy pup Miller knew he was. Even so, Miller never really wanted a cat, so he asked a vet if he wanted to take her to the shelter. It broke his heart, but he was determined. Little did he know that the universe was working in Crosby's favor. The vet was basically telling me that if I took her to the shelter, she'd be put down because there are already over 300 kittens in need of homes in the county shelter alone, Miller said. He said I could try to take her outside and hope she goes home, or I could keep her. With no choice but to keep her, Miller came home with a new family member and a very excited Crosby. It was a win-win. Crosby was no longer lonely and the kitten now had a loving home. Miller named the kitten Lil Ray Ray. And Miller, well, he's learned to pay more attention to what his dog is trying to tell him in the future. The more Miller saw how Crosby treated Lil Ray Ray, the more convinced he became that keeping the kitten was ultimately the best decision. Crosby even allowed the kitten to claw at him and feel at home in his warm fur. Crosby endured the kitten, even if she used his fur as a scratching post. Thank God for people like Miller, but animal shelters around the world need all the help they can get. So always remember, if you can't adopt, you may be able to promote. If you're unable to sponsor, you can donate or even just help raise awareness about rescue organizations and the amazing animals that are waiting there for their forever homes.